Have you ever heard that it's the little things that count? And do you ever wonder what that really means? I think for some of us, it means things like, if you have these big plans for your life, big dreams, big goals that you're trying to hit, or maybe it's even something that's indulgent, like a huge trip that you're planning for yourself. We can kind of get lost in believing that by getting to that really big thing, that's really what satisfies us. But the truth is that the way humans work, it has a lot more to do with all the small steps coming together like you want them to come together. And it isn't any one step that makes that like super duper work for you. It means that if you are always working towards that thing, you are like generating this feel good chemical of, oh, and I've accomplished this and I've accomplished that and I'm almost here now. And that's really what stacks up and makes us feel good, right? Now, how do we accomplish that if we don't have anything huge set for ourselves? Maybe life is just hard right now. I know that's true for a lot of us. So, if you're thinking about like, how do I make this happen then if all I'm trying to do is get through my days? All I'm trying to do is get past my stress, get to the job, do that thing, go pick up the kiddos, do that thing. Whatever it is in front of me just feels like another thing that I have to do, not something that I'm working towards or am excited about. Then how do I get this little things positive effect, Dr. Natalie? Well, if you want to hear a little bit more about that, then keep listening today. Welcome back. So you've made it. You've been with me this whole time this month, right? April was all about self-care, all about taking a really radically different approach to self-care. At least I hope that I have been able to widen your eyes and your scope about self-care. And remember that if you go to the notes or you go to the learntoloveyourstory.com website, I still have up my self-care cheat sheet, which really simplifies things. So instead of thinking of this enormous idea of self-care and the 5 million things I could do for self-care, I've narrowed it down to the 4 chemicals that our body generates when we're feeling good and how to kind of cheat the system. That's why it's called a cheat sheet. How to cheat the system on knowing what chemicals you're low on, what you need to do in a form of outside self-care activity to generate those chemicals, and how to just get back in balance for yourself. So I'm hoping that everybody's downloaded one of those because it's a real helpful little tool. And after this month, I'm going to be jumping in next month to talking about setting intention for our life and really like changing our mindset about what we're wanting out of life, what we're working towards out of life. So it might be that I have a different little freebie for you next month that goes along with that. So be sure that you've downloaded this because it really is an invaluable little resource that I'm handing out to you. All right, everybody. So here's the thing. We are creatures of habit, are we not? It's kind of our thing. It's kind of our thing to just not want to have to put a lot of thought into stuff, do the same thing that we do every single day, right? And well, unfortunately, what can really start to become a drag about that is it feels like our life is just a series of have tos or a to do list and not the kind of life that we want to design to want to be invested in. Like, have you ever been scrolling on social media? And I'm sure you've got those people that you like to watch that are kind of the influencers, or maybe it's a celebrity or something like that. And they have little nuggets of wisdom. Don't get me wrong. But I don't have your life. That, yeah, maybe you're really, really busy for a period of time while you're shooting something, if you're an actor or an actress. But, like then in between, your life is really kind of self-directed and you just get to choose what you're going to do. I don't have that. It turns out if I don't show up and do my job, my bills don't get paid. My bills don't get paid. I don't have a place to live. You know the drill, right? So have you ever been like scrolling through it? It's a great nugget of wisdom somebody's trying to give you here, but probably not applicable to your life. Does this sound familiar to you? I mean, I think that a lot of us run into this. So, what I'm hoping to accomplish today, honestly, is this is something anybody should be able to do. In fact, you should be able to be in the most stressful experience in your life and still fill yourself up in self-care with these little things, right? So as always, let me tell you a story. Let me tell you a story to give you kind of an idea of what I'm getting at with these little things, right? So I live with my broke best friend. She's 8 years old. This is what I call this. It feels like this sometimes to live with a little girl, right? So there's a lot of interests that she and I have in common because we both kind of are very feminine in our qualities. And yet we're also a little bossy with one another. And I have no idea where that child got that. So I do really feel like this is a like-minded little human that's living with me here. And I call her my broke best friend because she's always asking for me to get things and she doesn't have a job. Whatever. She's not paying for any of this. Totally a self-inflicted problem for me. Correct? Yes, absolutely. So living with my broke best friend has been kind of interesting. And she and I moved into this place. Gosh, what are we? We're going on about 5 years that we lived here. So it was after I separated from her dad and needed to, start over somewhere. And a decision was made. My son was going to go live with his dad full time. He had been living with me full time up until that point. He was about to head into high school, and he's like, "Hey, this would be a perfect time. I'll just switch." And she and I found this lovely little place, like literally not even a mile away from where my son lived. So it was so perfect, right? Like he could walk over and have dinner with us from time to time. I mean, he was in high school, so let's be real how much that was happening. But, it was really convenient. So we were all kind of really close together. And it's just this little, townhouse and has 2 bedrooms and a little rec room. So she has a little space and then the living room downstairs, just perfect living with my broke best friend, right? But as I've shared in my podcast here, as I've written about in my blog, like for sure, when we first moved in, it was one of the most difficult times in my life. Like seriously, one of the most difficult times in my life. I had really hit a rock bottom at that point and knew I was going to have to rebuild, redesign if I wanted to find joy in my life again. So things at that time really did fall into that category of I felt like I just woke up, did the same thing, was just barely getting by, just trying to get through what I had to do from day to day and then pass out at the end of the day and then repeat it the next day. It was not a happiness generation. I'm sorry. It was not a happiness generating time in my life. Let's just say that much. So I am at this point where, it's just really tough, right? It's just really tough. I'm the only adult around. I'm not great about reaching out to people during the week. I certainly had like the people I would see on the weekends, but like getting through the hustle and bustle of the week it was really tough. And my daughter was young enough at the time that I had these two sitters, two babysitters. One was a nanny that she had had since she was little. And another was a friend of mine that had said, "Hey, I know you're going through a rough patch. I would love to help you out. I have that ability. So please let me know." These two ladies were invaluable to me. And I realized like I would be dropping her off, right? Or they would be doing the shuffle between picking her up, if one of them had to drop her off to the other one. And I realized that Monday through Friday, I was a drag, man. I probably even hit the bitch mark. Let's be real. Like I was not a great person. I think I held it all together for my sessions, for my clients. And I really didn't have a lot left over after that. And not that I was short or curt or anything with these two lovely ladies. They just could tell. They could tell that during the week, like it was like by Friday, I was done. They'd see me again on the Monday and they're like, "Okay, she's doing better." So clearly whatever I was doing on the weekends was working to give me some regeneration, but during the week, not. And I didn't really have a lot of space. I didn't have a lot of places that I could fit anything into. I mean, let's be real. You're raising a preschooler, right? You're living alone as a single parent. You're putting together your own business, because that's what I was doing at the time. I was leaving a group practice. I was going into private practice for myself. I was teaching online to compensate and make a little extra dough because I needed to do that. So I was busy. I was busy all the time, and there wasn't a lot of space. And there wasn't a lot of like, here's all the extra cash money laying around in the house that we could like plan a big trip or something like that. So I didn't have anything I was looking forward to either. You know, when I did the intro today, I talked about that. I'm like, I think a lot of people can understand this idea of the little things when you're thinking about that in process to something really, really great, like a vacation or, a big party or something like that, right? Like a huge accomplishment. I mean, even I teach graduate school, like I've watched these students really struggle because it's a lot of work to balance family and work. And I teach a non-traditional graduate student. So these people are working full time, they're doing their families full time, and they're trying to become clinical psychologists. Wow. So I've watched them be stressed through this whole process, but man, are they not like the happiest people about working towards this lifetime accomplishment? I mean, like there's, I think less than 3% of the American adult population gets a doctorate. So that's a real accomplishment, right? So even though it's really stressful, you're working towards this really awesome thing. Well, at this point in my life, the story that I'm telling you, there was none of that. There was no, to some extent, maybe my business was kind of like that, but honestly, it certainly wasn't rising to that in my own mind, right? So I'm in this really stuck place where it just feels like a slog day after day after day. And when somebody, on a podcast like me says, "Oh, just do the little things," like I wanted to like slap them. I'll be real. I was like, really? Do you know what my life is like? So it would have just felt really insensitive to have heard somebody say that to me. So that's the context that we're in, right? And lo and behold, that Christmas, my son, sweet little soul that he and his girlfriend went out on Black Friday looking for the deals. And we had dinner, as a family with his girlfriend's family, actually that particular year for Thanksgiving dinner. And so I had talked to them as we were all going through the Sunday paper. Do other people do this? Like I maybe every 10 years will actually do the Black Friday. I'm getting up at the crack of dawn. But I always like to look through the Black Friday ads. So it's probably one of the only times I get a print paper during the year. But we're all going through it. And he overheard something I had said about, oh, I'd really like to have one of those. But, don't need to spend money on that. I was more trying to get ideas for the kids. So, okay. He overheard that I saw that there was an espresso machine for like $99 on Black Friday, right? Like I think it's usually around 150 or a little bit less. And it was going to be that. And it was one of these really cool ones. I love lattes. And so it was this one that had like the little milk frother so you could learn how to make cappuccinos or lattes. Because of course there's different steamed milk versus foamed milk proportions in those. But I was like, oh gosh, it'd be so awesome. And what he knows about me is I'm a bit of a coffee fanatic. Like I'm a bit particular about how I make my coffee. And he's watched me do this since, at the time he was in like his first freshman year in high school, I think. And like, he'd been watching me do this as a single mom before I'd gotten remarried. Like it's very particular in the morning about, I have this coffee and then I have this coffee. Like I have my straight up drip coffee and I do that, to kind of give me a start, but then I need to have one that's like kind of fancy and has the right creams or whatever, alternate creams, because I can't do dairy. Anyway, long story short, he overheard this and he and his girlfriend, those cute little kiddos, went out and found one and bought it for me. So for Christmas that year, I got an espresso machine. I still have it. It is like one of my most prized possessions, which all of you out there that have kids as they've aged, like when they buy you that first real present, it's not the, hi, I put together this paper bouquet in grade school, or I put together this clay coffee cup that you probably don't actually want to put coffee in because I'm not sure that it would actually hold. None of those kinds of things. Like the very first, like real, they went out, they thought of you, they bought a present, they brought it back, right? This was one of those for me. So it's a prized possession still in my house. So he bought this for me and I loved it. I loved it, right? So what I noticed day to day is that this silly coffee machine, not so silly, that having that kind of I mean, it was cool. It was like having a Starbucks latte. I was frothing the milk. I was steaming the milk. I was, figuring out, because again, dairy is not my favorite thing. So I was trying out all the milks, cashew milk and coconut milk, and which ones froth better and which ones don't, which brands do you like. I was into this, you guys. I was so excited about it. And it was just something that small that became something so big in my life at that time. Having that to look forward to every morning was paramount, right? Around that same time, I was working really hard to get myself up in the morning to have a time and space just for myself. I was starting a meditation practice. And I was pretty good about doing it after work or before bed, but I wasn't great about doing a little one to kind of start my day because I had never been a morning person. Now, in the context I just gave you, like, duh. Who wants to get up when they're slogging through day after day? So I was trying to like train myself to get out of bed early and give myself at least, I started with 30 minutes and then try to, gradually get to an hour or more before my daughter got up, where it was just me, right? Just time for me. I could read, I could just sit and sip coffee and look out the window. It didn't matter what I did. It was just time for myself. So this coffee maker also helped me want to get up to do that. I had actually bought a drip coffee maker. Oh my God, you guys are just going to think I'm crazy, but I had bought a drip coffee maker and literally put it on the nightstand on the other side of my bed. All of you out there that have like the queen or king size bed but are single, don't you have a side? Yeah, like, right, of course. I'm not sleeping in the middle of that bed. So there's like my side. And on the other side, I had put this coffee maker to go off on, automatically at the right time and to help me kind of wake up through the smell of the coffee. And then I was like, and then that's all, if that's all I do is just get out of bed and have that cup of coffee, great. Like it's starting to train my brain and my body to get up in the morning. So that's where I was at. Yeah, that's where I was at. This Nespresso maker was like a game changer for me. Like I wanted to get up and I wanted to go downstairs and I wanted to try, and I had bought a new pod. And so there was like a vanilla flavor and then there was this one and this one. Like it was amazing to me how something that seemed so small, so little, became such a big deal for me. And I started to be just subtly reinvested in my days. There were things that I was looking forward to, even Monday through Friday, even during that slog, right? Now, to add to this beautiful little story, like as my daughter started to age, she also picked up on this is like mom has some sort of nirvana experience with coffee. I have no idea what this is about, but I want to be a part of this. So she's learned actually to be my little barista. She loves it. She is the queen of the Nespresso machine. So on the weekends, she usually will make me her cup of coffee. And she's so cute, you guys, because of course she's probably been through a Starbucks line or 500. So she comes up with her little notepad and she's like, welcome to Starbucks. What would you like? And she takes my order. She's the cutest. I told you I live with my broke best friend. So anyway, this is all to give you this demonstration of, even in the midst of something so difficult, little things are the big things. In fact, they are sometimes the only things that we can anchor to. We don't have, maybe it's, we just don't have the resources financially to be planning something big. Maybe we don't have the resources mentally or emotionally to be looking forward or setting dreams or any of that. Like our only answer is that we have to do just the little bit of things right in front of us. That's all we can tolerate at different times in our stressful lives. And I would say life transition, midlife being one of those transitions, but midlife transitions in general, they are big for this, right? Because everything in your life is getting disrupted. So that means like everything that used to bring you joy kind of gets disrupted too. And life can start to feel like just a series of stressful events of a slog that you have to go through every single day. Nobody wants that in their life. Nobody wants that. So I would say that these little things are the kind of self care that you have to incorporate when you're in that place. And you know it works when you think about it as you're trying to generate something that's positive for you, like, the doctoral students I just told you about, like they're working hard. They're definitely stressed from day to day, but this outlook of it's going to be like this on the other end, that's really what pivots them. And next month, I'm actually going to talk about how you could do a little bit of that too by setting intention, around what you dream you want your life to be, essentially. But if you're like I was, 5 years ago or so, when I was just in the tunnel of it is just one series of to-do list items after another. I'm only getting up to get through the day. I don't have things that are really rejuvenating me, right? I'd like to tell you that I had boundaries. I didn't have great boundaries. And so that was part of what was going on then. Go back a few weeks ago when I talked about boundaries versus refilling self-care type items, because definitely that was a piece that I was struggling with. But when I was in the mode and not noticing that that was a piece of it, it just felt like I was only getting up to do the slog every day and I didn't have anything. And then all of a sudden, just, a little gift from the universe for my son was this Nespresso machine that became like the thing that little by little every day I was doing for myself. Now, I never would have known that. Had you asked me 2 weeks before I got that gift, will this change your life? No, I would not have been able to say that. I probably didn't even recognize it for a good month or two. Like it was February. And then I was like, wow, I'm like getting up in the morning and I'm like doing this and I'm feeling better. And then I started to put together, it was that little thing that wasn't so little. It was this coffee thing that was not such a little thing for me. So it's hard when you're in the tunnel to actually come up with an idea. And honestly, that's too much work. I would never want to burden you with that. If that's where you're at, if life feels really stressful right now, I don't want to burden you with coming up with something. So here's the cheat, right? Here's the ultimate way to figure that out for yourself without giving yourself a lot of extra stress. All I want you to do is try a new simple thing every week, right? If you're in that zone, every single week, pick anything. It could totally suck and not work for you. It's okay. But pick anything, making your coffee, in a different way. Pick anything, going to movies on the weekends, giving yourself 30 minutes of time alone in the evenings. I don't care what it is, try it. And here are the 4 questions to ask yourself at the end of that week. Did this work? What worked about it, right? What didn't work about it? Okay. So if something worked about it, how can I just keep that going in my life? I mean, I've done it for a week now. So how do I just keep that here? And if it didn't work, what do I want to do different? What's my next week? Right? It's those 4 questions. These are a really great way of just matter of factly not getting hard on yourself, not pulling it into, oh my God, I'm never going to figure it out. I'm never going to figure it out. It's a small way to look at the small things. Did it work? What worked? What didn't work? What am I going to keep? And what do I think? What else could I do? What can I do differently here? Those are the 4 things I want you to be asking yourself as you're introducing these new little things. Could be a walk, could be a television show that you watch that's new, could be, just sipping more water through the day, right? Could be anything, something small. It doesn't disrupt, doesn't take away from the to-do list that you have, the slog that you're in. It's not an added stressor like, oh, and then I have to do this. It's something very simple. And some of the cheats within that context even are, could you expand on things you're already doing, which is really what happened for me. It's not like I hadn't drank coffee before, my friends. Oh my goodness. Like I've been drinking coffee for a hot minute. So, I mean, I had one on my nightstand. So we know that was like not a new thing for me, but it was a new machine, right? And it was a new investment in trying to figure out how to best use that milk frother and balance it with the right flavoring of coffee. So if you're a coffee drinker, even if you can't afford to go out and get something new like that, you can buy a different flavor for a week. You can get a different creamer if you're a creamer person. If you're not a creamer person, you could try. You could try to add something to it, see what you think. Put some cinnamon in it. I don't care. Whatever you're already doing, if you just expand just a little bit on top of it, that's probably the easiest in trying a new thing every week. It doesn't have to be a big deal. It shouldn't be a big deal. If it is a big deal and it's feeling like a drag, it's too much, shut it down, try another thing that's just real subtle, just a little thing that you're adding to your day, day after day after day, right? It makes a huge difference. It will get you wanting to be in your life instead of just slogging through it. And if you remember when I started this series that first week in April, that's really the key to self care. What are the things that I'm doing that help me no matter how much stress I'm having to want to stay in my life, that help me tolerate my stress, but also have things that I'm looking forward to, even little things every single day. This, my friends, is how you will learn to love your story.